Yes, yes. Welcome to motherfucking Valuable Perspectives. Today we have an amazing guest with us, Iris from Black NFT Art. Thank you for joining us, Iris.
Thank you for having me. It's my pleasure to be here.
Yeah, I was diving into your Instagram and I just did an interview with Ian. He was just like, yo, you got to check out what they're doing over at Black NFT Art. So I'm
hmm
super excited to sit down with you and learn more about how y'all got into this and just some of the details about like what y'all are doing. So thank you for joining us.
Yeah. Thanks for having me. I love talking about this. I love talking about what I love doing. So,
Me too. I love NFTs. Well, let's get started, y'all. Dope.
I
So, Iris,
sorry, real quick. I love that intro.
thank
The
you.
graphics were beautiful. I want to know who made that.
Yo, so I actually made it. It was we could talk offline about it, but yeah, I've like, I've been diving into graphic design, all that stuff my whole life. So I did the beat for it and put it together.
Definitely connect.
For sure, for sure. I appreciate that. So, as we dive in, tell us a little bit about yourself. And you run a art agency, correct? Called, pronounce it for me. I don't want to mess up the name.
It's okay. So the I call it Umba Daima.
Hmm.
That's just easier and I think simpler for the English language. But it's Swahili for create forever, which is and the pronunciation is actually Umba Daima.
Dimina?
Daima. So like
Daima.
die,
Okay.
like dying, and then so die, and then ima, Daima.
Daima. That's dope.
Yeah.
That's dope. So, what made you start the agency and the company?
Yeah, so I had, well, one, I've always wanted to have my own business. I've always wanted to be an entrepreneur, and I've kind of dabbled in different business ideas and projects. Um, but I was particularly inspired by some travels that I had made overseas a few years ago. I went to the first trip was to Haiti. That was the first time I bought art overseas. Then a few years later, I went to Zimbabwe, and then about a year or so after that, I went to Ghana. And I learned from my mother when you travel to these countries, you should go to um, you can find these local marketplaces where you have local artists selling art, as opposed to like buying trinkets at the airport or something like that. You can go and buy directly from the artists.
Right.
And so I was doing that, and it always struck me um, how low the art was selling for in U.S. dollars, um, where the equivalent type of art in the United States might sell for thousands, right? And so I had went to Ghana at the end of 2019 for a wedding, and that was also the year of return, I think. So you had all these people coming in to Ghana for the year of return, and I met this amazing artist named Patty Blue at a marketplace, and she had these really big, beautiful paintings, and I struck up a conversation with her. I had already spent all the money I had, so I couldn't buy her art at that point. But I asked her if she was online, if she had a website, and she was like, "No, I don't have a website. I don't know how to create one." And so I was like, "Okay, let's stay in touch. I'm gonna figure out how we can help you sell your art online." And so we stayed in touch, and it just got me thinking what it could look like to just create a marketplace, like an e-commerce shop, and help these different artists who don't necessarily have access to having a website or an e-commerce store sell their art. So that was really how it started. And I recruited my co-founder Omar to come on board and help me with building that out. So that was we originally launched Umba Daima as like an e-commerce store in early to mid 2020,
Okay, so about
and
a year
then
ago.
about a year ago, and then At the end of last year, we started learning about NFTs, and we started learning about um, how it was empowering artists. And we asked some of the artists that we were working with if they were interested, and they said yes, but they didn't really understand it. They didn't understand crypto, they didn't understand Bitcoin, or ETH or any of that stuff. So we said, give us a few months and we'll go and we'll like figure it out and like come back to you with a plan. So we spent a few months listening, researching, sitting in on dozens and dozens and dozens of clubhouse rooms,
Like everyone.
right? And eventually, what we realized was that artists needed community in order to be able to grow and sell their work through NFTs, right? You have to have an audience, but you also have to have a community that's willing to mobilize around you and promote your work and show up to your drop events and encourage people to support you, right? So that's why we created Black NFT Art, which is a page on Instagram and social. It's a page. It's a page on Instagram and Twitter where we share people's art, Black art, um, in the NFT space. And one thing led to another. Next thing you know, we had different brands and different companies like reaching out to us, wanting to find artists to work with. And so that's how we got to the point of creating a creative agency. And so now our focus is mainly on helping to place artists onto projects with different companies. And sometimes we end up pairing them with musicians or athletes or certain like public figures. And then now we're also starting to venture into the space of more independent and creative curation. So we're working on an exhibit, right, where we're going to bring together about 20 to 25 artists for this exhibit, and we want to do more curation and more events as well, live events.
That's dope. I have so many questions. I feel like so really on a broad scale, you're helping artists put their art out into the world and to monetize it, to bring them more avenues of where they can sell it, specifically people who don't have access to these type of marketplaces like around the globe and specifically in black spaces.
Mm-hmm.
What have been some of the challenges as far as on the artist side working with you guys and kind of
Mm-hmm.
like going from having their stuff at a local market to working with you and maybe selling a piece overseas? What have been some of the challenges that they've been have to like overcome?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, what are the challenges that the artists have had to overcome?
Yeah.
Yeah, so to be honest, a lot of our artists now are actually in the United States and Europe. We have some artists that are in Africa, and um, and some of our older artists that we used to work with are in the Caribbean and Latin America. But we have transitioned a bit more into working with U.S. artists um, just because like the crypto space is uh, so technology based, and so it's just been easier for artists in the US and in the UK to be able to onboard and kind of get going quickly.
Right.
And so part of what we are trying to figure out is um, how can we work with artists who need a little bit more support in order to get into NFTs, who maybe don't have the resources to like pay $150 in gas fees, right? Because you have to set up a crypto wallet, then you have to buy the Ethereum, then you have to uh, transfer that Ethereum to like a MetaMask wallet, right? And then you have to mint the artwork. And that's a process that can take some time to figure out. And even just to get going, you have to have that money to get started. So I would say one of the barriers generally is really just resources, time to like figure it out. A lot of learning happens on Clubhouse, and a lot of people overseas don't have iPhones. So for a long time, they were kind of locked out of that space.
Right.
And I know time zones are an issue as well, because a lot of the events, the educational events that we have on Clubhouse and even places like Twitter Spaces are in, you know, our time zone, and a lot of artists in Africa are like 8 hours ahead. Um, so those are some of the barriers that I've seen.
That makes sense. What was it that you saw in NFTs that made you say, let's go in this direction and open the black NFT art, the Twitter, the Instagram? What was there anything specific that you saw that was like your aha moment?
Um, I think what I saw was opportunity. Um, what we what we learned pretty quickly was that selling art online is not easy. Not easy at all. So despite having a pretty nice, I think, e-commerce store, despite spending a good amount of money on ads and SEO and some other stuff, like it was definitely taking quite a bit of time to get the ball rolling in terms of being able to sell the artwork. And so when we looked at the NFT space, we saw it as a new space, a new frontier where we could, instead of instead of trying to be, the 10,000th person in line trying to sell black art online, we could be one of the first people in the NFT space trying to sell black art, right? And so from a business perspective and um, from a long-term perspective, a lot of people who are able to be innovative first, um, like get to reap the most rewards or a lot of rewards. So for us, I think it was largely about opportunity, and seeing how when we joined the space, there was a huge gap. I mean, at that time, it was really hard to find Black artists.
Right.
It was really hard to connect with other Black people in the space, whether it was artists or collectors. It was really hard to share and amplify your work. It was really hard to connect. And through the work that we've done, I think the impact is massive. The number of Black artists that have come into the space just in the last 4 or 5 months that we've been doing this has been tremendous. And they have so much community. They have so much support that did not exist back in February,
Yeah,
right?
and
So,
I could speak to that because I remember I was putting NFTs out and on Clubhouse, and it felt very isolating because there was a lot of gatekeeping going on. Right, you had Super Rare and Nifty Gateway, and it was like if you weren't able to get onto those platforms for a while, it felt like you didn't have any access to quality buyers. Right, and I think that it's been people like yourself who've raised the visibility of black artists and black art and kind of given space for people to come in and say, okay, I can come and learn. I can also connect with buyers. I think that's one of the main things I hear you talking about, where it's like selling art is it's a whole nother business. It's a whole nother artistic expression on top of the making the art.
mhm,
And I think that as an artist, it's easy to forget those parts, because we want
mhm,
to stay and just create and not think about, how do I build my following? How do I create SEO and good following? These things aren't always on the top of the mind for artists. So I'm really grateful that people like yourself exist, and I'm curious to hear you speak on where do you think things are going next. Right, there was like this huge kind of like, I don't want to call it an explosion, but there was like this awareness piece where
mhm,
a lot of people suddenly got aware of like, okay, NFTs are here. Jay
mhm,
Z's minted an NFT. You have some of these
mhm.
really big names who are putting their at least their pinky toe into the space. How do we, as black artists, how do we continue to form together, um, and to be a part of something that's obviously going to keep growing?
Yeah. Well, I think for one, you're going to have a lot more people coming into the NFT space. You're going to have a lot more artists. This is just the beginning. And so, I think it's important for artists who are currently in the in the NFT space to be prepared for that. I think there's oftentimes I've noticed um, a sense of lacking, like a sense that like there aren't enough collectors to go around, right? Like they're all kind of competing for the same collectors to buy their art. And I think that that feeling or that experience may continue for a considerable amount of time until collecting becomes more normalized and until it's easier to collect, right? Because there are a lot of people that really honestly just don't want to have to buy ETH to be able to buy a piece, an NFT. Um,
Right.
and so I think that something that artists can do is think about how they can actually organize amongst themselves. You know, I see Black NFT art as like a really big kind of like umbrella uh, term, right? I mean, we grabbed it first, right? We were lucky enough and strategic enough to be able to grab it first, and we got the trademark as well. So like we own that from like a business perspective. And you know, the term for the Black community could have been Black crypto art, right? It could have been something else, but because of us, now the term for Black people in NFTs as a community is Black NFT art, which is great. And we're really excited about having that larger kind of umbrella focus. But I think that artists are going to want to think about how they themselves can contribute to the space outside of just selling their art, right? How can they organize? How can they build projects? How can they build um, their own little like machines? How can they be innovative to be able to continue to develop the space for Black people?
Mm-hmm.
I think that collaborations are a really great way to go.
Yep.
I think that collaborating with smaller artists, collaborating with each other is great. I think also bigger artists coming into the space and collaborating with smaller artists is going to be really important. Um, and I think also people need to um, I think people need to make sure that they are centered in their values and that they focus on what's important to them, um, and that they don't get caught up in senseless drama, in my opinion, because I think that when you have a lot of people coming together in a community or in a space, there's bound to be conflicts. There's bound to be like personality differences.
Right.
There's bound to be people that don't like each other. I don't know if I can curse on here, but
Yeah. Yeah.
you know, we
Motherfucking.
say like we don't like people who don't fuck with each other, right? Which is totally fine. Like, but I think we have to be really careful about making sure that we don't kind of replicate some of the divides that you see out in the real world, like the divide between like Muslims and Christians, right?
Right.
You know, like there's this is a really new beautiful space, and I think we have to be really intentional about how we operate in this space, especially as especially since it's going to continue to get larger and larger and larger.
I really, I really love that. I think we as Black people, we have many things that do divide us. You know, it could be as simple as Jordan and LeBron, and just all these things that we fight over. And I think what's really exciting to me about the metaverse and crypto is that it's an opportunity to do things differently. We don't have to follow the same patterns because literally the sky's the limit, right? The universe is the limit. And so as we come together, just rethinking how we have come together in the past and hopefully coming from a more abundant mind frame, I think it'll really help us as a community. So I'm happy to hear you say that, and that people like yourself are bringing us together, because I think that's what we need. So moving on, can you explain to anyone who isn't involved in NFTs like why they might want to learn more about it? From that's on the artist side and on the collector side, because I think some people don't understand why should they even be buying
Why should they care?
NFTs. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I think you know, NFTs are not going to be for everybody, at least not right now. I think if you're somebody who cares about who wants to be able to take advantage of opportunity, if you're someone who wants to be able to take advantage of innovative things that are happening in society, if you're somebody who's interested in building wealth for Black people, Black communities, or yourself, if you're interested in helping artists take back their power and have more ownership of them, over their work and their careers. Um, if you value any of those things, I think the NFT space is a great way to do that. And a lot of people kind of wait until something is almost popularized and normalized before they try to get involved. And I'd say, there's nothing wrong with that. That's fine, but there's a lot of benefits to getting in early, and so now's the time.
So you're saying you don't have to wait till Bitcoin is 50,000 to buy. You could buy when it's 1,000 or 5,000. Same thing's true with NFTs, is what you're saying. I love that. So, what makes art valuable to you?
Yeah, so I would say, hmm, let's see, what makes art valuable to me? I feel like art is one. Uh, I feel like we need art as people. Um, I need art, like I consume art on a daily basis because it feels good. I consume television, I consume movies, I have art on the walls in my house. I listen to music, and these are all things that help me de stress. It helps me build empathy for others, it helps me think, it helps me learn and reflect and grow. And sometimes it helps me feel good, right? Like the right song comes on and I just feel amazing, right? So for me, I feel like art is a big part of the human experience, not just creating art, but in um, experiencing art. And so I feel like what's unfortunate is that we haven't created a world in which artists are truly treated uh, are compensated for the value that they create, and the value that they create is tremendous. Um, and so, I think that for me, like I for a long time could only buy, very, very affordable art. I can only buy prints and things like that. And as I get older, I want to be able to buy more expensive art. I want to be able to spend 5 grand on an NFT, right? I'm not there yet. Um, but I feel like I can help. I feel like it's important to, even though I can't afford that, I still recognize that that value is there, and that value needs to be like respected.
Hmm. Yeah, I agree that art is so important to all of us, right? Like, what would the world be without music and movies, even food? I see as an artistic expression. And I think it's been hard to compensate creatives, right? Because it's like you make a song and someone's listening to that song every day. Like, how do you possibly give the value to that creator,
Mm-hmm.
for that song? And I think that's one of the things that makes blockchain and crypto and NFTs really exciting, is that I think we're getting a little bit closer to being able to capture some of the value that we as creators are creating. And it's really interesting. That's why I asked you that question, because I think as artists, we create and we want there to be some type of exchange, right? We're creating to fill the world with something, and we want to be able to be compensated. We want to be able to feed our families, feed ourselves, take care of ourselves. So getting to a place of understanding, like, how is what I'm creating valuable? Why is it valuable? In the
Mm-hmm.
minds of others, because obviously what we create is valuable to ourselves as artists, But what makes someone like yourself pull out 5,000 and buy that NFT, right? And I think
Mhm.
we're all going through that process, you know, as artists of creating value but also increasing our value over time. You
Mhm.
know, when I think about my collectors, that's how I got into NFTs, because I was thinking about protecting their value in the future, right? And
Mhm.
how do I create an asset that's going to continue to increase the value over time? And as
Mhm.
an artist, why would my art continue to increase over time? And you know, just to think about that as an artist, I think is it's so important, because that is how we can capture the value, is to think about it, you know, and not just let it go outside of us, right?
Mhm.
Because for so many years, specifically as Black people, our art has been taken from us. We have not been compensated. But I think it's part of our duty to understand how do contracts work. You know, we've signed shitty deals in the past, and now we have smart contracts. So we're like entering a new era of what that means. You know, so
Mhm.
I just really appreciate you answering that question, because I think it's important for all of us to think about. You know, what makes our art valuable beyond just how we feel about it and our sentimental value.
Mhm.
So, next question: how do you find the artists that y'all work with?
Yeah. So, um, in many ways, it has been through social media. Um, when we first joined the space, again, there weren't a whole lot of Black artists that were in the space, but I was able to find a few. I think the first three that I really connected to was first Corey Van Loo. That was the first person that I actually spoke to directly about a drop that he was doing. Then I connected with Andre O'Shea, who him and I were in a group of Black leaders in crypto, or Black people in crypto. And I, um, I had created the Black NFT art Instagram and I posted it in the group. And he followed it. And so when he followed it, I went and looked at his page and I thought his art was amazing. So I reached out to him. We had a call. We talked about how we could work together. And and so from there I just started kind of reaching out to different artists that I was finding on on Instagram and asking them, if there was any way that we could help or we could support. So the third artist was Isaac Udagu, um, and yeah, I would say from there it was kind of it was just like one thing led to another. Once we started the social media page, you know, it just kind of took off pretty quickly. People started finding our pages and started sending us their art. We started getting DMs every day. So I would say in many ways, I was able to kind of see every Black artist that was coming into the space. Of course, the first thing you want to do is try and get your art out there. So first thing they would do is come to our page and try and get a post. So we've been able to just see a lot of great talent come through the space. Um, and we also have we started doing clubhouse events on a weekly basis. We were doing about 2 to 3 clubhouse events per week on various topics around NFTs and trying to help people understand NFTs and ask questions and share information. So I met a lot of people that way as well. Just seeing them come in the room, come on stage, ask questions. You click their profile, go to their Instagram, go to their Twitter. You can see their stuff. And we particularly started connecting to the people that would come back regularly. The people that would come back regularly and really showed a high level of commitment and engagement are the people that we've tended to end up working with.
That's dope. What platforms do you suggest that people use to buy and sell NFTs for any of the newcomers out there?
Yeah, that's a hard question because um, it depends on what your goals are. If you are trying to sell your art right away, um, you want to go to a platform like Foundation where there's a strong collector base. Foundation does a pretty good job of promoting artists, especially Black artists. And so I think somewhere like that, you're likely to have more success than a place like OpenSea, where it's just a lot harder to find artists. There's a lot going on OpenSea. You're just kind of like a tiny fish in a big old ocean. Um, so if you're really kind of wanting to start selling your art right away, then yeah, foundation. If you can get on Super Rare, that would be great as well. Super Rare seems to have an even stronger collector base. However, if you're really focused on being on a platform that has features that lend itself to true long-term ownership of your artwork, right? And protection in certain ways. I still need to do a lot more research on smart contracts and interoperability and stuff like that. But platforms like Foundation and Super Rare, they do have limitations, right? You can't, it's not that easy to just take um, to it's not that easy to move an NFT from one platform to another. So if a collector somehow takes the NFT off of a platform, there isn't necessarily a way to make sure that you get paid if they sell it, right? In terms of storage, the storage is centralized. The store your asset is stored on this company's servers, right? As opposed to having it stored in your own server, or through decentralized storage, which is a new term that I learned just the other day. Um, if you're a musician or a filmmaker or somebody that makes content that has a large file size, then you're going to want to use somewhere like Zora or Ephemera or Obtainable, or OpenSea. Ephemera and Obtainable don't have a huge audience yet, so it's probably going to take a long time to sell your art, right? So there is a lot of trade-offs. But I would say I would caution artists that come into the NFT space desperate to make money. I think if you're desperate to make money, I think that it's going to mess with your psychology, and it'll fundamentally, I think, impact how you create your art and how you interact with the space. So if you're already kind of doing something that allows you to make an income, or you're already surviving in a certain way, I would say stick to that and try NFTs on the side and approach NFTs from a place of understanding, like, these are my values. This is what I want to accomplish through my art. This is the vision that I have for myself as an artist, and stick to that. I know that some people, have different circumstances and maybe they need to make money right away. That's totally fair. But if you become fully reliant on NFTs, then you can get caught in a place of, like, maybe not making the best decisions about the platforms you choose, not making the best decisions about how you create your art, maybe getting caught up in things that don't matter instead of focusing on truly, like, what your art means to you.
Those are such good piece of advice. You went really deep into the different platforms, and hopefully everyone listening can go back and dive in and go do your research, because there's so many different platforms. And one of the things that you said that I think is so important with NFTs is it's really how you do it, right? It's not just that you go out and you mint your own NFTs. It's how are you going to interact with the community? What is your release schedule like? Do you have some type of burn mechanism? Like, there's so many different ways that you can dive into the how you release NFTs, and the how is such a big determination of like what's going to make you either successful or not. So I think those points are so key.
Yeah.
So
I also want to add really quickly that I think, again, people should have a long-term view, right? And see themselves not as like an NFT artist, but an artist that makes NFTs.
right.
So think about, like, who you want to be or where you want to be 5 years from now, 10 years from now, 15 years from now, and incorporate NFTs as a strategy to get there. NFTs are not the end all be all. We don't know what's going to happen. Ethereum might crash to $5 tomorrow, and the whole thing falls apart, right? So just be smart and be careful and cautious, and just stay focused on the long term vision.
I love that. So what's next for your company? What can we expect moving forward?
Yeah, so we're actually really excited about what's next. We dabbled in artist management for a little bit, and we thought that maybe that was the direction that we wanted to go in, and we realized that it's not. We realized that we really want to stay focused on um, broad broadly in the NFT space specifically. We want to be able to broadly help artists, help Black artists in the NFT space, right? In terms of just creating visibility, in terms of helping them connect to each other and to resources and to companies and collectors, etc. So that's Black NFT art, and we'll continue to do like educational events. We'll continue to do this free social media promotion, and we have a podcast. I think that podcast is going to be a great way for us to be able to network and meet dope people in the space who come through our podcast, and then we can leverage those connections to benefit the community. And then through Umba Daima specifically, our vision is to have like multiple sub projects. So Black NFT art is one of them. That was probably the first like kind of big sub project. And then our next one is we're launching a virtual gallery called the Unseen Gallery. And, it'll be on its own website. And we're going to use this virtual space to be able to host a number of different projects. So we have an exhibit coming up around September, October. We haven't finalized the dates yet, but we're super excited for that. We think this is going to be a pretty profound and historical moment for the community in terms of all the different people that we're bringing together for this project and all the different companies and brands that are excited to be a part of this. And so this is in many ways like a test run. We've tested out different things. We've tested out artist management. We've tested out e-commerce. We've tested out educational events. We've tested out, talent booking, which is also we still do that. We still like book artists for projects. But I think that where we can really make a big splash is just kind of branding ourselves as curators, as people who can curate really great experiences, and people who can bring artists together on a project and create something really beautiful out of that. So yeah, the future for us is curation and programming through more events, virtual events and live events, but they will be bigger and better than what y'all have seen so far.
That's dope. So how can people find out more about the work y'all are doing and get in touch with y'all, and connect?
Yeah, so I definitely recommend people subscribe to our newsletter. I think that that's going to be a great way to stay in touch. We don't have a newsletter that we send out like super regularly, like every week, but we do have an email list where we keep people updated. So if you go to umbadaima.com, that's UMBADAIMA dot com. You can subscribe to our email list there. You can also subscribe through blacknftart.co. So again, blacknftart.co. We have you can subscribe to our email list through that site. I would say definitely follow us on socials, follow us on Instagram, follow us on Twitter. And if anybody is interested in reaching out directly about a specific project, or they have a specific question or anything, our email address is info@umbadaima.com. And you can find our email address online as well.
Dope. And I'll make sure to put all that information in the show notes below. So, Iris, thank you so much for taking the time with us and sharing your knowledge with our audience. And I look forward to connecting with y'all more and just following what y'all are doing with Black NFT art. I think it's super important. And, we have so many awesome artists out there that need more visibility. So I think what y'all are doing is so important. So thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. I appreciate that. And I definitely want to connect offline about you as an artist as well.
Definitely. We will, most definitely. Well, thanks to all y'all for tuning in. Make sure you hit that like and subscribe. And until next time, peace and love, y'all.